All right. Bobby, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have an interesting chat, and we're gonna bore your listeners by talking about all the legal stuff the whole time, right? That's the
Yeah,
plan.
that's the plan, of course. My number one goal in life is let me see how boring I can make every episode.
It's not always the best way to go, but sometimes I feel like maybe we ought to try to bore people just to weed out the people who don't really like us, but I don't do that, and we
Yeah.
won't do that. I promise, listeners, we won't do that.
We won't do that. Okay. So this is exciting too for many reasons, but one of which is that you're only the fourth man to ever come on the show. So there's a very exclusive club of male Success with Soul guests, and you are now a proud member.
I love it. Well, it's funny in my group coaching program, I think there are 41 members somewhere around there, and I think there are three men, maybe four, three or four men in the coaching program. So it's been I always hang out with women, and I'm always around women in the entrepreneurial circle. So I will just say I'm in good company.
Which is really interesting because depending on which kind of circle you hang out in online marketing, it's either all men or now it sounds like in your case, primarily women.
Yep.
So, how did you get to be in the circle that's mostly women and not with the kind of the bro marketers as they're now called?
Well, first of all, we're gonna have to talk about bro marketers. I'm also on a quest to end that term,
Okay.
and I'll tell you why later. But basically, I mean, what it comes down to is that there tends to be two sides to the entrepreneurial or online entrepreneurial world. There are the people who are driven almost exclusively by money, and they tend to be what you called the bro marketers. It tends to skew more men, and then there tend to be the entrepreneurial circles where people have some kind of passion for what they're doing. And yes, I want to be clear. I want to make money. I'm sure you want to make money. We're in business to make money, but it's not just let's figure out, the quickest way to get someone to part with their dollars. And so I
Right.
think that's a big part of it. It's kind of the path I chose in entrepreneurship, but also I mean, it's weird, and I don't understand this. When I was literally starting my podcast back in 2017, I used a group to help me with it, to kind of coach me through it, to create the intro, to do all that stuff. And the company was run by a guy, but I was working with a woman coach, and she said way back then, and this was when I was just the legal guy, just legal stuff for entrepreneurs. At that point, hadn't even sold anything online. And she said that she could see me leading a mastermind for women, which it struck me as odd at the time.
Mhm.
But there's something about me, I guess, that I just, I don't know if it's an energy thing. I don't know what it is. Like at church, my teams have pretty much always been all women. My house, I have a wife, a daughter. We now only have one dog, but when we had two dogs, both of them female dogs. My team, all women. My number two says she thinks it's because I have a big brother kind of energy,
Mm.
and so I don't know. That's her theory. I don't know why.
Yeah, interesting.
It's all it's all speculation, but we could guess, and we'll never really know.
Well, I could see that you have this kind of nurturing tendency about you. And I know you really, I'm on your email list and I see how you talk about serving first and giving people value before you're trying to sell them. And I think, to be completely sexist and overgeneralize, women tend to be more nurturing. So maybe there's something in that energy and not putting money first, even though it's like, yes, of course, we do all want to make money. We're in business for a reason. We've got to pay our bills, support our families, etc. But what a novel concept to actually enjoy what you do.
I know it's crazy, right? It's crazy, and people hear me say this, and I think some people will say it, but I say I truly feel like I'm getting up and playing with friends all day.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things when people ask me the secret to success, I don't think there are a lot of secrets, but I'm like, that's it. I'm passionate about who I serve, what I do, and all that. So it makes all of this stuff way easier when you really love what you're doing. And by the way,
Yeah.
it makes it easier to want to serve the people because I care about them as people, not just as wallets.
Right. Totally. So, yeah, I think that's so important. And it reminds me, one of my mentors right now, Mariah Cause, she talks about how she treats her business just like it's a game. Like every day we're just getting up to play and see what's on the next level. And it's not this like taking yourself so seriously. Everything is so life or death. Everything, there's so much like fear and limiting beliefs and all of these things where we can really act like, oh my gosh, if this doesn't work, it's the end of the world. And you just kind of treat it as like, let's just have fun. Let's just play. Let's just see what's on the next level.
Yeah.
It becomes so much more enjoyable.
Yeah, well, and again, so the difficulty that I'm sure you face and you recognize is and this is where I always want to be careful with that kind of advice because I say that too. We have to detach from results and things like that. But that's easy enough for you and me to say, right? Like once you've broken through,
True.
it's like, and I get it. Like I get my people who are struggling and they're struggling to make ends meet. And I get that it feels harder, but and what I tell people is, look, this is gonna be hard. We've joked internally that we're trying to find a place, the easy button that you can get from whatever Staples. We want to find a place that will make them that says hard, so that I can literally tell people this is gonna be hard. If you're not willing to press the hard button, go get a job because
Right.
building businesses is gonna be hard. And so what I like to tell people is don't make it worse by making it something you really don't like doing on top of just being hard because it's hard work. And
Right.
it's one of those things that I just think so many people are making it hard on themselves. And I hear people talk about this like they're trying to build a business to retire by the time they're 45 or something. I say, man, that makes me sad.
Yeah.
Makes me really, really sad. Now, I don't want to bust my butt and have to hustle my whole life, but I don't want to retire either because I actually enjoy what I'm doing.
Right.
And, I, I want to get other entrepreneurs to say, well, why don't I find that thing that I enjoy doing? And so they don't have that same mindset.
Yeah, I've done a lot of mindfulness groups and entrepreneurship. We have this place in Atlanta that's for female. It's really not just for entrepreneurs, but anyway, it's kind of like a co-working space, but they do these personal development classes. And I feel like in almost every one, they would ask everybody, like, if you didn't have to work for money, what would you do? And I'm
Mhm.
always like, I think I would just do what I'm doing. I just really like this. And it's not that it's so easy. There are parts of it that we can let be easy and we don't have to make it harder on ourselves than it needs to be, which I know, especially as an overanalyzer and overthinker, I can tend to overcomplicate myself into something where it's just like, oh my God, just take a step back and choose the simple, easy answer. But I was talking to a friend the other day and she just left her corporate career like a couple weeks ago. And she was saying that it's really hard and it's not about like there's just more of this pressure. And I said, "Well, yeah, but just so you know, like that's never going to go away. It is harder to be an entrepreneur because everything that you do or don't do actually matters. And in a regular job, I mean, unless you're a complete shit employee and they want to fire you, like your effort does not correlate to the results or your income or your impact. And to some people, that's terrifying, right? They're like, I don't want that kind of pressure. Like I need the stability. I just want to know that every day is kind of the same. And to me, I'm like, that feels like being in prison. And I would rather know that like how I show up matters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is funny, and I've thought about this for a long time. I think there's an illusion, and it depends on what level of a corporate job, but I think there's an illusion that people have that they're safe and that they don't have to worry about these things. And I think like I said, I think it's an illusion. I think ultimately people, especially now more than ever, it's becoming a thing that even people who have corporate jobs, they kind of have to be responsible for their results in some level, or they're gonna have problems. And I saw this in, as a recovering lawyer in the law firm world, where there were these people who were at big law firms, and it was traditionally, hey, you're at a big law firm, you go there, you spend 7 years as an associate, you make partner, you're safe, you're gonna make a good living, you're gonna make $500,000 or more after, whatever it is, after let's say, 15 years as a lawyer. And so people were accustomed to that. And then things started changing. like during the 2007, 2008, 2009, all these lawyers from like, high pedigrees were getting laid off. And we're like, well, what do I do? And it's
Mhm.
continued to happen. And that's why, like, I've seen, I think that a lot of people had that thought that you were talking about that most corporate people do. But ultimately, if you don't bring value of some sort, you are, you're a
Expendable.
commodity, you're
Yeah.
expendable.
Yeah.
And, we entrepreneurs have just embraced it and said, we're going to admit that. we're going to, we're going to admit that, we're going to face that, and we're going to deal with it. But going back to your thing about, what would you do if you had all the money in the world? I mean, I think one of the things that's interesting is I think you should have that answer. Well, I would do the same thing I'm doing now. Maybe I'd have more help so I could get rid
Mm,
of the parts I really don't want to do.
right.
Um,
Yeah, it
but
might look slightly different, but
right,
generally, like the overall theme is always like, no, it's this. Like
right,
this is what lights me up. And
yeah,
but to your point about being, more expendable than we maybe realize when we're in a corporate setting, um, I think the same thing. I've heard so many people say like, "Well, I just need the stability, I need the guarantee." And I'm like, "That's an illusion. There is no
mhm,
guarantee. You could get laid off tomorrow for no fault of your own, and now you've got all your eggs in one basket." Whereas in an like I think most successful entrepreneurs have multiple revenue streams. So, something goes south, okay, it's not a complete problem because we have these other things that we can float by until we figure out the next thing, right? And so,
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, I think that's absolutely right. And again, the big problem I've seen. Now, I'm not there yet. I'm not at a point in my life where this would, I'm at this age range, but I know a lot of entrepreneurs who became entrepreneurs because they were forced to, because they got laid off later in life. And in spite of the fact that there are laws against age discrimination in employment, the reality is it happens. The reality is if you find yourself as, a 55-year-old, laid off person trying to get yourself another like corporate job is going to be tough.
Mhm.
And, it's not fair, but it's true. And that's one of those things people need to be thinking about. And I mean, separately, as we're recording this, I was reading an article recently in the Washington Post about how Washington, D.C. is going to look completely different after the pandemic, because something like 30% of the workers have already said they're going to continue to work from home or work
Mhm.
remotely, because DC, where is such a knowledge-based economy. We are almost all knowledge workers, and then the professionals are, at least. And so it's going to have these broad ripple effects for all of the other industries that serve those people. And,
Mhm.
there's already been a lot of layoffs in, what, I don't know if they would be considered white collar jobs, but people who were like assistants and,
Mhm.
kind of working in support roles in these things. And I don't know what's going to happen, but it's not going to be pretty. And people need to expect that and be ready for it.
Yeah, so interesting. Okay, I feel like we jumped right into the deep end and now I'm like, let's back it up, rewind for a second. Tell everybody who you even are. How did we come to be here today? Tell us about, I know in the intro, I told everybody about you're a Harvard educated lawyer, but you give us the scoop of how you went from, I said the scoop, I was going to say scoop, then I was going to say spiel. So the scoop
There
of
you go.
lawyer to now online entrepreneur, badass online marketer.
So it's kind of it's a weird long story, because so I grew up in deep South Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley, 5 miles from the Mexican border. My dad ran a chain of drugstores, so like a think of it as kind of CVS or wherever you are, that kind of thing, but nicer. And so it had a nice electronics section, it had a nice fragrance and cosmetic section, so something kind of between what we think of as a drugstore now or pharmacy now and like a department store kind of thing. So he ran a chain of these, and it was funny. He wanted me to go into business. And at the time, I was like, I don't want to. I have no interest. By the time I was a freshman in high school, I had decided I wanted to be a lawyer. Now, at the time, I had the wrong view about what a lawyer was, ironically. But so I go to law school, and I get out, and I had jobs and I had a career for the first, I guess, like 8 years. I was a lawyer that most lawyers would drool about. So I graduated in 2002. I first clerked, which meant I got this prestigious job working for a federal court of appeals judge. Um, who many people consider one of kind of the best liberal judges never to make the Supreme Court. He was considered twice by Clinton, but not elevated. So I do that. Then I go work at prestigious firms here in DC. And at the second one of those firms, I was mentored by this guy that at the time I just called Neil. Now I have to call him Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. So like I was, by a liberal line, a conservative line, I've had, all of those experiences. And this is what I was doing, but I never liked it. I mean, it's this thing.
And why not? What did you not like about it?
Well, because there's a lot of things. One, I don't like suits. I just don't fundamentally like, and it's not even about anything about it, but I'm the guy who wears t-shirts, shorts, and flip-flops. That's just who I am. I played in a punk rock band in college.
Did you
and
really?
Now, yeah. Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, no, I did. I was the bass player in a punk rock band with my brother who my brother has kind of continued on. He's still plays, he's the pandemic has caused some problems for him, but he and his band now tour in Europe. And so, I had all that in my background and that's who I was. But then I'm literally working at these firms, representing, AT&T and big, huge companies and fights against other big, huge companies, where it's okay, well, we're fighting about stockholder value. And again, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it gets kind of hard to get excited about doing that. So after I'd done that for a while, I became a federal prosecutor in Fort Worth, Texas, which was a lot of fun. I got to stand up in court nearly every day, but at least every week I would stand up because I would have to go to court for something and get to say, I'm Robert Klink. I'm here on behalf of the United States of America. Now, maybe it sounds cliche, but that's a kind of a cool thing to say.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. So I did this for 3 years, had a lot of fun, but I knew that wasn't my long-term career. So I joined an entrepreneurial firm here in Washington, D.C., made the classic entrepreneur's mistake. We didn't have an agreement in place about what was going to happen long-term. How would I become a partner? And the reason why that was a bigger issue was that it was a firm with two people other than me, two lawyers other than me. And we did contingency fee work mainly. So we had some other stuff, but money came in chunks. So I would go 6 months without getting a paycheck. And then, a payment would come in and I would get paid. Now I was treated completely fairly in the 4 years I was there. But the problem is I had all the downside risk. I didn't get paid when the firm didn't, but I had none of the guaranteed upside. So if we'd hit any of these big cases we had going, I wasn't guaranteed anything other than, my salary basically that was in this letter. Right. And so when my wife got pregnant, I talked to her about it, or I talked to them. I said, hey, we've got to formalize this. And over the next, I don't know, it was probably the next 10 months, we kind of talked about it off and on. It came to a head when my daughter was 3 months old. We got on a conference call. And at the end of the conference call, I knew, it wasn't that they were firing me, but I was like, I'm out. I'm not sticking around. And this is what happens if you don't get these things agreed to in advance. Because if you think about it, it is kind of a zero-sum game. So someone saying why I shouldn't get as much is basically saying you don't contribute much to the firm. Things like that were said and all of these issues. And so that was in 2014. And a sad part about that, the guy who was saying the things that really drove me nuts, he had flown through Hurricane Sandy to get to my wedding in the Bahamas on a 10-person plane. I have not talked to him since the last day of February 2014. Aww. And, that's what happens when you make these mistakes. So you can kind of see why I'm passionate about helping entrepreneurs avoid those kinds of things. But so I started my own law firm. And one client came with me and we settled that case pretty quickly. So I'm sitting here as a lawyer kind of twiddling my thumbs. Didn't have much to do, had a lot of time, no work. So I started learning stuff about the online world. Literally I learned a little bit of HTML coding so I could move things on my website. Not a good use of time, but I did.
That's how we all start. Let me twiddle around with the meaningless details of my website, because that's what's going to make a difference.
Right. Well, but again, so the funny thing is I was resisting doing the stuff that as a lawyer you should do because candidly, I didn't like hanging out with lawyers. So I didn't want to go schmooze other lawyers, which is what most entrepreneur or lawyers do. But so I started reading books about marketing for lawyers. I decided those were dumb, threw them out. So then I start just reading other stuff. And I came into this whole notion of inbound marketing and online marketing. And this was this would have been in 2015, I think. I got certified as an inbound marketer by HubSpot. Again, too much time on my hand as a lawyer. But so I did that, wrote a book. I am an Amazon bestseller with a book no one should ever read called Patent Litigation Primer. And a little thing to everybody who's listening, you can become an Amazon bestseller by selling 25 copies of a book during release week if you find the right niche, which is what I did. Um,
And
there,
apparently the niche needs to be very narrow because
well,
I don't even know what you just said means.
yeah, I mean, literally, I mean, it's one of those things. It was like there is a niche for like people writing about patent or something, and I was like,
Yeah,
okay, cool.
sure.
And so but so I did that, and it's funny. I still get people still buy that book for some reason, and so I get like $1 or $1.50 every month from Amazon, which I laugh about. Um, but so I did that, but then I was working with a life coach who said, "Do you like what you do for a living?" And I stammered,
Uh-uh.
and for the first time, I told anyone besides my wife that I didn't. And at this point, I had started to get clients. I was starting to do it, but I really didn't like it because I spent all my days fighting with people and often fighting about dumb stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so that put me on this quest to come into the online world. I started getting on podcasts, talking about legal stuff. The early podcasts, the headshot I gave was still me in a suit, which is kind of funny now. But so that was 2017, which was my horrible year. I put about $50,000 into my business, made one sale, and she asked for a refund on day 29 of a 30-day refund policy, never having looked at the course. So that's where I was at the end of 2017, about to say, this is dumb. I'm not doing this online marketing thing anymore. But I gave myself one last chance. And the pivotal moment I always say is that December 31st, 2017, I was in church. It was a Sunday, and the pastor was talking about giving and how giving changes you as a person, not about any other benefits. And so I decided to make giving my word of the year for 2018. And that little shift, and really I did just start giving stuff away, giving freely of information, kind of asking, how can I give more? Not, am I giving too much? And it started slowly, but it started. And in, I think April was my first sale of that year, April of 2018. By the end of the year, I had made $250,000 in my business all by myself. I had no one else. I didn't even get a VA. Don't be like Bobby. Don't get to $250,000
Get a
without a VA.
VA. Yeah.
But so that was kind of what I was doing. I was doing the legal stuff and just helping people with legal stuff. And then in 2019, people started to ask me how it was that I seemed to be able to connect with people online in a way that was very different, and they thought very unique. And so I, in 2019, launched a membership, which we're now shuttering at the end of March of this year. But we launched it. It was all about finding your fans, and it really was about how to connect and how to do it differently. And kind of since then, I still do the legal stuff, but I'm also a business coach helping people with this stuff. And then I've also gotten known for my email, so I'm kind of also the email guy for in some communities. So that is the what was that, about a 20-minute version of the story?
No, I love it. I love it. And we have a couple things in common. I mean, one is I lived in Dallas and I lived in DC. So we have some just geography in common there.
Mhm,
But I love this story of, I mean, I know it's heartbreaking at the time, but I love this story of your kind of failed launch because,
mhm,
of course, like every entrepreneur, I too had a failed launch. I lost over $12,000 at the end of the launch. Even though I made like 50,000 in revenue by the end of
mhm.
it, I had lost $12,000. And gosh, I mean, there's nothing like, well, you went to law school, so you're probably a little bit used to having like student loan debt. I don't know if that's an assumption to make, but I had never had a penny of debt in my entire life, which is a huge privilege. But then I was $12,000 in debt, and I was like, "What am I doing? I just need to throw in the towel. Like, this is too hard. I can't do it." So I know you shared the giving story, but I'd love to hear just like what was your mindset at the time that made you keep going and keep showing up when things got so hard?
I mean, candidly, it was, and it's weird. At the time, it was as much about running away from anything as anything else, which was, I really didn't like being a lawyer. And
Mhm.
that was the big thing. I had a very strong why. And there were multiple pieces I didn't like about being a lawyer, including that it wasn't suited for me, but also it meant that my life, I was subject, my schedule wasn't mine. It was controlled by the judge, it was controlled by opposing counsel. And so I would have things happen. I mean, I can remember time. I don't even remember the case. I don't remember what it was, but where literally I got an order. Let's say it would have been like I got an order this morning that said I have to be in court clear across the country the next afternoon. So, I mean, just think about like that's kind of the level of disruption that I had to like, I would have to be ready and able to do those things. And it really drove me nuts. So that
Mhm.
was a big part of it. But I mean, what I said in 2018 is I said I was giving myself one last chance. And I made a couple of investments that year early. One of them was it was a complete disaster, and it was the bigger investment. It was in a program to develop a high ticket program, which is funny because as a lawyer, my stuff was naturally high ticket. The hard part was making it low ticket. But it was also like based upon they wanted me to like literally like pressure people into like going out and getting multiple credit cards if they had to buy my thing, even if they didn't have a business yet. So they didn't really need to spend $6,000 or $7,000 on legal stuff, but that's what they were encouraging me to do. And so that one didn't work, but it was also the year I joined B School, and I joined through Amy Porterfield as an affiliate. And that really was kind of the watershed moment because it was the first time that I was very conscious of saying, I'm gonna just be here. So I got to be in a Facebook group with the other people who had signed up through her with about 1,000 of my ideal customers. And I didn't go in there with the, well, let me do market research and ask questions and do the stupid stuff people do where we post the questions, but I was just there. I was among my people and I gave to them. And so, I mean, Amy and her team noticed. So she like reached out to me, like literally at this point, at a point where I'd made, I think maybe I'd made $1,000 in sales, but I don't even know if I'd made that. She reached out and asked me to be a guest teacher in a program she was developing. And I was like, okay. I ran downstairs, told my wife excitedly. She's like, who? Didn't
Who?
understand, of course. I
You're
run
like,
back
Amy
upstairs.
Porterfield, you don't understand.
Yeah. And she's like, what? She's like, who? And I was like, oh, whatever. So I come back upstairs and I'm typing this response. Like, I'm like, be cool, Bobby. Be cool. Be cool. Like, and so I'm doing that, and like, I respond, but my response was like, "Hey, happy to, but I'm going to be launching my own thing, and I'm in the middle of this GDPR training I'm doing, but we can definitely find a time, something like that." And so I set it off, and then like I immediately get back right away, almost an email back from her. She said, "Wait, hold up." She's like, "Cool, wait, hold up, GDPR training. How much are you charging for that?" I said, "I'm not charging. I'm just giving it away for free," which confused her even more. Because like,
Like, this is an
literally every
interesting business model.
well, because every lawyer at the time was trying to, and listeners, if you haven't dealt with GDPR, if you weren't in the online space in 2018, there was craziness. And every lawyer, I mean, lawyers were trying to charge people, hundreds of dollars for a checklist, not even for anything you do, but just a checklist.
Just
And
a
I'm like,
checklist.
this is insane. And the training came out because I attended trainings and I couldn't understand what they were saying. As a lawyer, I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to do it myself. So I created it, but then that was the reason she then invited me to come onto her podcast. And at the time, I had a list of maybe 800 people. Overnight, my list like exploded to 4,000 or 5,000 people. And that happened the day before my first successful launch started.
Oh, that was convenient.
Yeah, and it was like pure serendipity. I had no
Yeah.
idea when it was coming out, but I just did it, and so I made I think $1,000 or $2,000 in April 2018. In May, I made $70,000, and it
Wow.
was like holy, and it was all because I had given, and it
Mhm.
was like because again, Amy noticed me, but most of the people who bought from me in that first launch were people who were in that group with me who had seen it or they heard me on Amy's podcast, got on my list, and I decided like I was originally just doing one webinar on the May 1st.
Mhm.
I decided, well, this is working. Maybe I ought to do another one on the 8th. So I did another one on May 8th, and a bunch of people joined it. Ironically, my integrator, the woman on my team now, she bought my stuff there on that after that second webinar. That's how she came into my world back in 2018. She was building her own business before deciding she didn't really want to anymore. And so, I mean, and it was all just because I was doing things that most people online were looking at me and say, "What are you doing? You got to
Mm.
charge for that. Don't give that away." I was like, "I'm going to give it away." And people have quit telling me that now. which is nice because a lot of people I know are trying to not charge, multiple thousands of dollars for courses. And people are saying, oh, no, you got to charge more. You got to charge more. I was like, just be like me, keep doing it. And then people quit telling you because they figure out that telling you is not going to do any good.
Yeah. Okay, but this is so interesting to me because I have seen a few entrepreneurs where I've thought, I think they got into a bad habit of maybe giving too much away for free. Then when they tried to sell something, people are like, what do you mean? I have to pay for this now? You should just give it to me. But clearly that has not been your experience.
Well, so here's my view. My view is that um, there's a couple of things going on there. Number one, some people give not for giving's sake. They give because they're afraid to ask for money, or they
Mm,
give as a tactic, and that can't be what you're doing. So that's part of it, is kind of like the way you do it. But also, I mean, there needs to be clear lines. And in my mind, and I'm really weird on this, like, Kate, I'm way crazy on this.
just
I
this though.
believe it's time for us to stop saying we sell information.
Okay.
Because if we sell information, guess what? We compete with Google, with Facebook, with everybody else. And I'm nuts, but I think 5 years from now, Google or Facebook or someone like that is going to be offering online courses, online trainings at $50 that will replace almost all the online trainings that are out there. And so I honestly believe that if what you're saying is I sell information, you were already antiquated. You were like Blockbuster in the 2000 timeframe when they could have bought Netflix but chose not to. So I've chosen, I don't charge for information. I give my information away for free. I charge for implementation. My legal stuff, it's my legal templates that I charge for. I give the training away. We have created this thing called a Badass Online Marketing University, which is right now it's one course called Online Marketing Foundations, but we are adding more. I'm redoing my legal training, putting it in there. It's Online Legal Foundations. I'm creating a course on messaging, on copy, on list building. There's gonna be an email course, a course about sales pages, a course about beta launching, a course about creating your product, a course about storytelling, a course about content marketing, and it will go on. And it's 100% free. We're creating it, and these are not like, we're not just putting courses in there that it's like, oh, look, we're just going to put this on the, do something really quick. No, these are courses that could be signature courses that other people would charge $1,000, $2,000 for. My view is I'm giving that away for free, and what I charge people for is my coaching, and I've got VIP days and group coaching, and that's my belief. I think, if you're asking me, and I could be crazy, like I said, I could be 100% nuts here, but I think that everybody's going to have to make that shift 5 years from now. I'd rather be ahead of the curve than behind the curve
Mhm.
on this one. So that's kind of the choice I've made. But I think, like, I saw a question in a group recently about someone was like, serves surfers, and said that, surfers aren't used to paying for courses. They go to YouTube. So how do I charge people? And again, my response, what I wanted to say is, well, if they can, like, if literally they can find all the information on YouTube, that's a problem for you, because a lot of people say, well, but we organize it. Okay. Organizing information is not high value work.
Mhm.
It's just not. There's what we could call an arbitrage opportunity right now, which is right now, people are willing to pay for it. And so I'm not saying everybody has to be like me and give stuff away right now. I'm
Mhm.
not saying that. But I think you need to have a plan for when, I don't know if it's AI or whatever, can organize this stuff and people will no longer pay for organized information.
Mhm. Interesting. We've definitely got my wheels turning.
Mhm.
I do agree with you in that I think that paying or selling just information is probably short-sighted.
Yep.
Yeah, and I hadn't even thought about the fact that, yeah, of course, because eventually the Googles are going to get in on this, and then what? Who can compete with Google?
Right. I mean,
Nobody. So,
there's already masterclass.com, and again,
right.
they don't teach a lot of the stuff we teach, but I'm saying it's going to come. I mean, we've already got Udemy, but Udemy is different
Yeah.
because it's
Skillshare,
individual.
I don't know. Yeah, there's some of those. But I agree that so what the difference though is I'm thinking, well, okay, yeah, there's using the surfing example. You can get free YouTube videos, free blog posts, free whatever, podcast episodes, whatever the platform is, and you could learn how to do these things. but it's not enough. People still aren't getting the result that they want just because they have the information.
Mhm.
So then that's where we come in. And it's like, so we're not selling the information, we're selling the coaching, we're selling the community, we're selling more of this support
Yep.
because that's what the missing piece is to information. Is that how you feel?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we need to say we don't sell information, we sell implementation.
Okay.
We help people with that. It's exactly that. And again, like what I like to say is if you think about it, like when you go to college, you're not paying for the information.
Mhm.
You're paying for the teacher presenting it and helping you learn it in a particular way because I could go buy a book and get the information.
Right.
And it's not saying that the information doesn't come with it. It's simply saying that's not what you sell.
Mhm.
You sell something else. And again, so like this is why if you have a program that has the information, but then you're offering in-depth kind of in-depth support, community, coaching, all of that, great. But like I shifted someone who she was going to say, well, I've got a course and I'm going to do a VIP level with coaching. I said, well, who are you serving? And she talked about she was serving more advanced people. I said, no, you have a coaching program and you're giving them the course as a bonus. And she made
Mhm.
that shift and she said she got a ton of results because of it. I just think that at some point, and again, I don't know when it's going to happen, but I think at some point the notion of charging $1,000, $2,000 for courses that are largely about the information is going to pass.
Mhm.
And again, I could be wrong. I could be 100% wrong on this, but I mean, I don't know what your mindset was, but when I entered the space, the idea of paying $1,000 for a course seemed weird to me. I was like, can I just buy a book? Like $20, $50. I mean, couldn't I just learn this? And again, so I think at some point the pendulum is going to swing back and people are going
Yeah.
to start to expect that again, especially when the Googles, and again, I don't know if it's Google or Facebook. It may be a company we've never heard of,
Right.
but some bigger company with scale will come in and start doing it. And then, what are we going to do? And that's why I said I think of us as like I think in terms of pop culture. So I think I love The Office, and there
Who
was the
doesn't?
famous episode, or not a famous episode, but there was an episode towards the end when James Spader was on it, and he came and he was like rallying the troops about how they were going to compete with the big office superstores. And he said the era of personal service is back. I don't think it ever left, but I think that's our advantage. That's what we can deliver that Google can't. That's what we
Mhm.
can deliver that Facebook can't.
Right.
And that's what I think we need to be doing. And this is why you better love the people you serve. Because if you don't love the people you serve, guess what? You want something scalable so you don't have to be there very much.
Mhm.
And I'm just saying, well, I don't think those types of opportunities are sustainable. And if you look outside in the broader world, it's not how people are building businesses. And so I just think we need to recognize that and start thinking about what's next.
Yeah. So I have this quote here in my notes that you've said before. I'll read the quote and then I'll let you respond here. He said, too many people are focused on automating, delegating, and templatizing everything in their business. That approach won't fly because people don't want to feel like they're just a number. If you'll focus on actually connecting with people in non scalable ways, you'll thrive.
Yep.
So, talk to us about this because I do think that everybody's talking about now like the buzzword in online marketing, at least in my world, is scale. Everything needs to be scalable and automate, and like you said, so how do we build a successful business and have it keep growing and keep our sanity if it's not scalable?
Well, so I mean, there's stuff that has to be scalable, right? I mean, my weekly email obviously is a weekly email that goes to everybody, right? My
Mhm.
automated emails have to be automated. That just, there's no way to do that at scale. But the problem I think is that people are using delegate, automate, and scale and templatize in a sense as an excuse to put a barrier between them and their people.
Mm.
And that's where the problem comes up. Now, again, I'm not saying you can't build a business doing that. You can, but I also have this feeling that it's going to be way harder because if your people don't feel a deep connection to you, they're only going to be with you as long as they feel like your course is the best or your product or whatever it is the best buy for the dollar. Otherwise, they're going to go find the cheaper option, and they're going to go that way. Um, and if you use a model where you use open and close cart, they're not going to wait if there's someone else with a product that serves them. When you're connected with your people, you don't have to worry about that. They don't, I don't want to say they don't care about price. I mean, you can't be 50 times as expensive as a good alternative, but if you're more than an alternative, they don't really care. So that's part of it. But another big part of it is like when you, and this is the thing I want people to get is one brand advocate, one person who you have touched and goes and tells every single person they know about your business is worth, I mean, their weight in gold.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you get when you're willing to do the unscalable. And so, like, doing the unscalable is like, and again, it's crazy. People hear me, and maybe this is gonna, cause a problem for me. But people DM me on Facebook, and I respond, and people are like, wait, what? But I do, and I'd rather they DM me than my page because I'm like, I just DM me personally. That way, we're just having a chat, and we don't have to deal with the other stuff and Facebook weirdness. And I can't do it all the time now because we get so many, but I try, and especially early on, every time someone replied to one of my weekly emails, guess what? I responded to them.
Mm-hmm.
And if and I kind of like scaled my response based upon how big their response. I mean, if they just said, "Hey, great email," I would send a short, "Hey, thanks, thanks. I always appreciate, hearing this because I like to hear that people are enjoying it." Or sometimes I'd say, "Well, what do you enjoy?"
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes people will write me like a 5-paragraph response. And guess what? Those people are getting a big response from me too.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that when that happens, people are blown away and people then become lifelong fans.
Mm-hmm.
And the lifelong fans, and again, this is the stuff that I was doing way back when that had people first asking me to be like to teach them what I was doing on Connection. But what I like to say is, I mean, think about it from the terms of like what would a shop owner, like the person who owned the general store in a smaller community do? They take the time to get to know their people and to take care of them, to care about them, to connect with them. And that's why people keep going to that place instead of going to, the Costco a couple of towns over or something like that, because they feel that connection with people.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at that and I say, most of us, let's just be honest, are not Apple. We're not going to be Apple. So why don't we think about how do genuine brick and mortar businesses operate, build the goodwill, build the connections with people, and let's replicate that and do that online. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, it's like things like when people post in your Facebook group, I mean, find a way to respond to help them. Don't say, oh well, they haven't paid. So I'm not gonna, I don't care about them. And it's about little things like, I hear these people talk about like being mad about freebie seekers. I love freebie seekers. It means I got to help somebody. Yeah, they're not going to buy from me. Guess what? I'm going to give everybody who's listening to this a bit of like, tough love. 80% of the people or 90% of the people in your community are never going to buy from you.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it works. Um, but they might tell someone else. And I've
Right.
had a lot of people who are brand advocates who've never bought from me or they had sent me tons of people before they bought anything from me. And so I think that's the approach we need to take.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote down like 10 follow-up questions to everything that you just shared. So I'm like, oh, so good. Okay. I want to talk. Let me just go through these here. So, replying to emails. This is one that I've been struggling with lately
Mhm.
because I used to send out some kind of like formatted newsletters and they got good open rates, but like nobody was ever replying to them. They weren't building this connection.
Mhm.
And at the start of the new year, 2021, I was like, every Tuesday, I'm going to send out like just a really heartfelt email. I'm going to show up as me, and that's going to repel a lot of people and it's going to magnetize the right people. And I've just got to be okay with that. And sure enough, I went from getting like maybe a couple replies to emails a month to getting a dozen or two every time I sent out one of these emails. Now, some of them were like just nasty hate mail that came back. Fine, bye. I don't need you.
Right.
Some of them were really thoughtful, like responses, like you said, multiple paragraphs, people really wanting to share and connect. And of course, I want to respond to them, but I can't respond to everybody. And so how do you have somebody on your team respond really thoughtfully? Do you like just make the time? Do you have to give up something else? Like, how do you deal with that?
So I make the time. One of the things that I've been very clear about is we are 100% transparent. If you get an email with my signature block, it is from me.
Mm-hmm.
It is not, if a team member is responding to something, they will literally forward it to their email address and then send a response from them. So we want to be very clear so people know that, because again, it's one of these things people think that people think, oh, this isn't really Bobby. I'm like, oh, it really is.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well,
but
we have, just to clarify, like if I have a team member respond, they're not pretending to be me.
right,
They're saying, "Hey, it's Tanya and
right,
Kate's team." And then, but they're giving a very thoughtful response
right.
back.
And I just want to be clear because I know a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people literally just have their team responding as them on social and all this stuff. And like, that's why, like, for one thing, I've chosen not to use, like, have a team member do engagement on Instagram for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because candidly, if I want people to know that when they're dealing with me, they're dealing with me.
Mm-hmm.
So like we have a Team Clink Facebook account or Facebook page that then can interact as the team. But
Mm-hmm.
no, I mean, I make the time. And like I said, I can't do it as much now because my problem is now my welcome sequence that I send to new subscribers, which they
Which
get
is so good.
over a period of like 6 weeks or more, is basically my greatest hits. And so I get a lot of responses on that. And some of them, like one of them, I tell a very heartfelt story about my dad being in a plane crash before my third year in law school. And I literally just ask people, I say, to commit to themselves because it's going to be hard, but commit that they're in this and they have a strong why and they'll do it. And if they're so bold to just respond, I'm committed. And I said, that way I'll just know. And so on those, I don't always respond because I've kind of prefaced them and said, look, this is for you. And that way I'm going to know. And if they say more than that, I will respond. But yeah, what we have is like, I mean, first of all, I kind of make a point when I do the send out, like I'm not supposed to be in my inbox. My Filipino VA sorts it and there's like an urgent for Bobby and non-urgent for Bobby folder. So most of the time that's where I'm supposed to live. But when the emails go out on Tuesday, when I send them out, I make a point to be in my inbox just to be there to see it. So I can just catch them. And like, again, it takes 5 minutes
Mm-hmm.
most of the time to send a response to people, if that. And so I make a point, kind of like people say, look, if you're going to post on Instagram, you should be ready to comment or respond to comments in the 30 minutes to an hour after. I try to do the same thing. Now, I can't always do it, but I make a point. And it's one of those things I have chosen very carefully that what we are trying to do in my business is carve out everything other than kind of the idea generation at the top, the connection piece, and then delivering on coaching. Everything else someone else handles
Mm-hmm.
so that I can do that. Because
Right.
I honestly think, I mean, that's one of the things that only I can do. And so I'm going to continue doing it as long as I can.
Yeah. I mean, I think regardless of whether or not you agree with Bobby's take or you have, some caveats or anything, I think the important lesson to me that I'm hearing is like figure out those things in your business that only you can do. They might be different in your case, and
Mhm.
then delegate the rest of those. But there are ways that you need to show up, and you need to show up as you 100% transparently. And that is what's going to make the biggest difference.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's absolutely right. And again, everyone should have a list of the things that only they can do. Like, I'm the only one who can show up on podcasts, right? Because
Right.
we don't yet have my voice so that someone could simply, sound like me. I'm the only one, in my view, who can truly connect with people. Because if someone else is trying to do it on my behalf, guess what? They don't know my stories. They don't know. They just can't do it. And then I'm the only one who can coach in certain ways. But even the coaching, like in my coaching program, we've brought in other coaches. Now have a copywriting coach. We have a Facebook ads coach, so that we're doing that very intentionally, so that it can take some of the load off. But yeah,
Mhm.
you got to find what only you can do. And as you grow your business, you focus more and more of your time on those things and less on everything else.
Right. Right. Okay. Love it. Now, one of the things I heard you say, and now I'm like, what was it specifically that you said? But the note I wrote down was about urgency and scarcity. Oh, that was what you said, something about if you only have your cart open
Mhm.
during certain periods. So, does that mean that for your programs, for the things that you sell, people can buy them at any time?
Yep. I've made that decision. And again, this is me looking outside the online space. And I say, if we, if it makes sense to only have our programs available for sale 2 weeks a year, why doesn't Apple do that?
Mhm.
And again, I look at it that way. And again, I could go into a long discussion about the difference between marketing and selling,
Mhm.
because a lot of what we're being taught as marketing isn't actually marketing. I mean, it's one component, it's selling.
Mhm.
Um, but when you look at marketing theory, the grades, what they say is the point of marketing is that you don't have to sell and that you have the perfect product for the perfect person at the right time for them. And you say, do you want it? And they say, yes. Um, and so that's what I've done. And I mean, it's even broader than that. It's like my signature legal product is you buy my template library, you get all of my legal templates now and any I introduce in the future. And it's $1,000.
Mhm.
65% of those sales, they're not from affiliates, they're not from a funnel, they're not on my list. They land on my page and they buy. And what's happened is I've done again what businesses outside the online space do and understand you have to do. You build goodwill, you build a reputation. And so people have either interacted with me online or they ask a question somewhere, where do I get, I need to get legal stuff. And people say, go to Bobby Klink. And so that's what I do. So we made that shift on the legal stuff in October of 2019, and everything else. I mean, my coaching is a bit different because it's kind of, we're doing it as cohorts. So, at this point, I'm not really selling my coaching program because I'm like, I got 40 people, we're good.
Mhm.
But everything else, we've just decided it's available, and it's not even through evergreen funnels. Now we have those, but that's not where our sales come from. Our sales come from us nurturing people and kind of treating people the right way. And then they're ready. And when they're ready, they'll buy.
And so let's just say I'm somebody on your email list
Mhm,
and are you pitching me your products at any point? Do you have cuz I'm thinking I am on your email list.
mhm.
I don't really remember getting any emails that's like, "Hey, did you know I sell this thing? You should buy it."
So one of the things and again, this is the thing, as your business gets more complicated, it's tough, right? But part of what we're doing, we're in the middle of a tech stack overhaul. And part of that is we're reworking the welcome sequence. And part of that is there's literally going to be 4 emails that I think we're calling the legal stuff welcome sequence. So that's about helping people understand my history as a lawyer, all those things. And here's how I can help you with the legal stuff. So like very early on, making sure they understand that I have the individual templates, but also that. Also, we have our premier thing. This bomb you will have calls to action in it. So once people are in there, it'll do it. The training about the legal stuff, for example, talks about it. Where we literally are building the tech now, but it's going to have a drop down menu, so you can click a button and it will just take you to the sales page for the individual template you're looking at. So you have that. Um, but also then we'll do like flash sales. We'll just do kind of flash promos that are, we come up with something fun extra to give to people when they buy. So instead of cutting the prices or doing something like that, we say, hey, if you buy now, we'll give you this. Like last year we did a couple times. Well, if you buy my template library, or at the time if you bought this email program I had, we would give you a free ticket to my virtual event. And so like we do things like that. And normally we're in a place where we do some kind of promo almost monthly. Now this year we haven't done any yet because we've been just neck deep in the tech stack. We're moving from an all-in-one to building everything through Access Ally on our site so that we can really control every aspect of it.
Wait, does
So
this mean you left Kartra?
we are in the process of leaving Kartra. Yeah. We've had multiple, I mean, look, uh, Kartra has its benefits, but it has its problems.
Mhm.
We've found that, like, we discovered this recently, that for some reason one of our nurture sequences for people coming in through Facebook ads to my privacy policy, starting last October-ish, for some reason, even though there was an automation to put them on the welcome sequence, it didn't do it. So something like 20 or 2,800 or 3,000 people didn't get put onto the welcome sequence, and they were just sitting there nowhere. But it was more a bigger decision for Bomb U. We're treating it differently. It's free. Like every course in there is free. You never have to pay $1, but you have to use points to buy the courses. You get the foundation courses, and you earn points by taking a quiz at the end to prove you learned it. And
Ooh.
so we wanted to like put that kind of stuff in there, put all of this additional functionality in that just wasn't available on Kartra. But even then, like we looked at a bunch of other systems and it wasn't really available on other systems either.
Mhm.
So we have a web developer who is writing code to work with Access Allies so that we can have a truly customized membership
Yeah.
portal for people. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
doing that.
So when you're
We're
ready for
moving email to
custom development. Yeah. Okay. So this is so interesting. So BOMU, do you have to pay to be a member?
nope,
No, it's
free.
all free. But then
100%.
are you coaching people inside of there?
So we're and again, this is where I'm even crazier than most people because a lot of people so a lot of people in the space used to have alumni groups and they close those down. And if you want to get coaching, you have to join their membership and pay. We're actually adding a Q&A to my free Facebook group, a monthly Q&A where I will support people for free as they go through BOMU, and especially as things get bigger. And so that's always going to be free. But basically what we looked at it as is we wanted to create a place where people could come and learn the stuff so they could keep their money to spend on Facebook ads, to spend on service providers, to spend on the stuff that they need to get done. Because we all know there's just a lot of stuff that has to get done that you probably need money to pay for. And so that was our decision. And our belief is that what will happen is over time, it becomes a way for people to go from starting out. And again, it's not just basic stuff, but like building all these skills. And then they'll join my coaching program, or then they'll hire me to do a VIP day. And
Okay, so I was gonna say, so how are you making money? So you got to be selling something.
I mean, I
So
sell
the
my
coaching
coaching
program.
program. We
Okay.
have we do VIP days, which these days most people do it for messaging and for bringing me in on that, which is weird. I'm not a trained copywriter or anything like that, but I can find messages really well.
Mm-hmm.
So people will pay me for that. And again, we're going to have like, we will have affiliate stuff in BOMU for software, for all those things we recommend. But again, that's really meant to defray the costs of ads to get people into BOMU. So yeah, I mean, we're spending money to put people into BOMU to do all that. We may launch something later, some kind of membership, I don't know, for something specific. We haven't decided. We've toyed with creating like an email membership where people can get like help with like, editing and thoughts on that. But we really are thinking of it in terms of we honestly believe that it'll take care of itself. And I mean, I could scale my business, especially because I've got the legal templates that bring in money all the time. We could pretty easily scale our business to a $3 million a year business without really having to ramp up much or come up with new offers. And I look at that and I'm like, pretty good business.
Pretty good.
That's that's not something that I would be mad about. And my team always says, they're like, Bobby, you'll come up with something. Because I always have ideas for new offers. So I'm sure it'll come. But basically, if you think about what we're doing, is I'm building something where I become the person when someone needs coaching. They'll think of me if they learn through BOMU. So I just become kind of the natural progression for them. And so that's our plan for now. But yeah, 100% free.
Fascinating. You're definitely breaking the mold here and very ahead of the curve.
Yep.
But I'm very intrigued by this business model, and I just love that it is truly serve first. A lot of people talk about serve first, but I don't think anybody takes it as far as you are right now. So that's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah, nobody's as crazy as me. But
But then you see, like, it's still working. You still have a seven-figure business, and
I mean, it's one of these things where like I look at and again, I've asked this question like, do I need an 8-figure business? No. I mean, if it serves an audience to do it so that I can serve more people, great.
Mhm.
But I don't need it for competitive reasons. I mean, if I cared about competitive, like and being competitive at stuff, I would have stayed in the lawyer game and done the traditional legal route, which, I could have been making like not revenue, but like a 7-figure paycheck
Paycheck.
myself,
Yeah.
for I don't know, maybe not 10 years now, but at least like 7 or 8 years now. And I didn't want that. I don't need that to validate me. And so that's part of it. But also I just look at it as a way of saying, I just think it's the right thing to do. And
Mhm.
I'm not saying people who don't do it are wrong or bad or anything like that. It's just, it's partly what my kind of values say I should be doing. And
Mhm.
I'm leading with my values and, trusting, because it in a lot of ways is the evolution of my business, because I made this same change back in 2018. Yeah, with my legal stuff. At first, my legal training was packaged up with my templates.
Mhm.
But I don't know, I think it was October of 2018, I broke it apart. I said, the training is free. You just have to pay for the implementation.
Mhm.
And so in some ways, this is the next logical step of that. I'm just doing it on the business stuff side.
Well, and I can speak firsthand to how giving you truly are, aside from everything we've just talked about, because people who are in my Six Figure Blog Academy course get Bobby's templates for free because he just so generously was like, yeah, I'll give those to you guys. Why not? Came in, did a talk. It was amazing. So yeah,
Yeah,
very
I mean,
grateful.
last year we did some calculations. Last year, I mean, if you look at my privacy policy, which I give away for free as my lead magnet, most lawyers charge $300 for it. If you look at that, I gave away almost $4 million in value there. But when you add all of the other stuff that I gave away to people in their programs, at literally the price I charge for things,
Mhm.
we're somewhere between $7 and $8 million in value that we gave away last year. And I said, okay, it'll take care of itself. And again, I say that and people are like, are you crazy? But here's the thing. I wouldn't have sold $7 or $8 million of it.
Right,
I mean,
right.
if I were insisting on selling stuff, I don't know what I would have sold. But I also know that for example, with the privacy policy, I helped 13,000 entrepreneurs make their websites legal last year.
Amazing.
That's pretty cool. When I look at that and when I think about that.
Yeah.
Uh, so
And I mean, there's just so much good karma happening here
mhm.
that I feel like it's bound to come back. So,
Right. I
yeah.
mean, again, and this is the thing. Like, one of the things when I talk about giving is I don't do it I don't give it with expectation, but I also know that it pays itself back tenfold, and it does it in ways I will never see coming. Like, again,
Mhm.
the getting interviewed by Amy Porterfield on her podcast back in 2018. I couldn't have seen that coming. I
Right.
mean,
It's
it
not
just
even like you went and pitched her to be on the show.
no,
It just
it
came.
just happened.
Yeah. Well,
And
it just happened because she saw you serving. And
right,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Which is such a cool story. And okay, so do you mind me asking? I've got kind of a two-part question here, and then we'll wrap up because I know we're coming up to the top of the hour here. So um first part of the question, and feel free to say no, and we can even edit this out if you're like, I can't believe you asked me this, is how much do you sell your coaching for?
So my coaching, we did it this first year, was 7,000. It was 6,997.
Okay.
And
Gotta
again,
end in a
get
seven.
this. What?
I said
Yeah,
it's gotta end in a seven.
well, and again, we could get on a little diatribe about that. Like, I have found no research anywhere that supports that. But because I serve entrepreneurs in the online space, I'm like, I don't want them to ask why my price doesn't end in seven. So that's why I
So I'm
do it.
just doing it.
Right. So, like, literally, normally I don't do stuff because what everybody does, but I do it there because the people I serve are like, wait, why are you not ending in seven? So I do it for that.
Mhm.
But again, this is the thing that's, again, you'll think I'm crazy. It's a year-long program, and I do 2 calls a month with people. But actually, because we got so many people in for scheduling, I do 2 calls each of those days. So the first and third week of the month, I do 2 different calls just to do scheduling reasons. But then here's the truly crazy part. Most people, of course, like have a mastermind, which they charge for, et cetera. And we said, no, we're not going to do that. We wrapped it into the program. So we have what's called the inner circle. So anyone who has in the last year made $100,000 in revenue in their online business, or once you're in, like if you fall below, it's fine. But once you're in, you get into this inner circle, which is basically mastermind level support. And you also get calls the second and fourth week of each month. So basically I'm coaching people every week,
Right.
but I love it. And as we're recording this, I'm preparing tomorrow. I'm doing it. We're doing 3 boot camps a year. So tomorrow we're doing starting a boot camp about messaging and list building to get people kind of moving forward. So yeah, that's the program. We did it. And we, we announced it. We kind of pitched it at my live event last year in December, which is where I also announced that Bomb U is free. I mess with my people. I I did what seemed like a pitch for Bomb U. Told them, here's the course, here's all the things I'm adding. And everybody was literally saying, here's my card. How much is it? How do I sign up? And so on day 2 of a 3-day event, I said, this is part of a bigger movement. More about that later. See you after lunch. And they were all mad at me. Then I came back and pitched the coaching. Some people joined. I announced that Bomb U was free the last session of day 3. And the response was unbelievable. And within 10 minutes of announcing it, 9 more people joined coaching because and again, I talked to them and they basically said, if you're willing to do that, I want to learn from you.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, wasn't a plan. It was not meant as a sales pitch, but it had that effect. Again, giving led to me getting. So that's what we're doing. And again, we haven't decided like, originally we planned to pitch after the event. I mean, we had about 100 people there for the pitch at the event and got 40 people in. So a 40% conversion rate on a $7,000 program tells you something.
Yeah.
We were planning to send emails, but I was like, yeah, let's just make sure we can serve these people well. And so we didn't even email anything. If we're kind of feeling good, we haven't decided, we may do another cohort in the middle of the year. We haven't decided for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we did. And that's kind of how the coaching worked.
Amazing. So, okay, I was like, this is a 2-part question. Now I'm making it like a 6-part question. So, first part is, can anybody join your coaching at any time then? Because you're not like doing it as part of this live launch type model.
So, and that's the thing, like, as I think you probably know, people don't join coaching like without it being pitched for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, one of the things, like, we didn't know how successful the pitch was going to be. We had no idea. And
Mm-hmm.
so I said at the event that it was going to be open all the time. So if someone from the event came to me and said, hey, I want to join, I'm going to let them in. We're not actively pitching it at this point. Someone would have to call us. At this point, someone would have to like get in touch and we would have to feel like they are a good fit to bring them in, partly because, the coaching has become, I mean, there's kind of especially with a group of 40, it really is kind of a camaraderie and cohorts. Now, I don't know what our numbers are going to be next year, but I expect next year it will be bigger. And so it'll be a little bit different. I mean, next year the price will probably go up, is our plan. But we also anticipate we'll have more people. So adding some people at random times wouldn't be as big of a deal. But right now, if you imagine if we had like 2 or 3 new people, all of a sudden, it kind of changes the dynamic. And so we would be very
If
cautious.
everybody came in at one time, yeah, that makes sense. Versus if you had it kind of just on a rolling basis this whole time and people were coming in any old time. Hi, puppy.
Yeah, which was our plan at going into the event. That was our plan, was that it was going to be just, we're announcing it, we're opening the doors, people can come in anytime. And then we so far surpassed what our expectations were, given how many people were there.
Right.
They were like, let's pull back
for a minute. Okay. So then inside this coaching program, are you delivering any like content? Are you giving them sort of like, is it a hybrid model where there's like course content and the coaching, or you just show up on the coaching calls? Are they just like live Q&As? Are you teaching something? How does that work?
It is other than the boot camps, it is hot seat style. I mean, it is more a true coaching / mastermind feel.
Okay.
Now, some of it was we had more people join that were earlier on in their journey than we expected.
Okay.
And so it kind of forced us to create a bit of, like, I created, and we still have to pretty it up and make it nicer, but we created kind of a process where we talked about 3 phases of building a business, which, by the way, like on this and the ideal way of doing it, you're not selling until stage 12 of a 12-step process. So, most people haven't done a lot of this, but so we created that and are working on it to kind of put it in a nicer way. But our goal is that I don't have to teach, because guess what? I'm going to have Bomb U. Like, if they need information, go to Bomb U. And so, like, right now, since Bomb U isn't fully built out, we only have that one course. I have a lot of trainings I've done for other stuff. So we give them access. Like, if they need, like, some folks were already building sales pages. So I had a sales page training I had done at some point. So we gave them access to that, just gave it to them. But really, it is a pure coaching. What are you struggling with? Let's get you past it. Except like these boot camps, like this boot camp is going to be messaging and list building, but it very much is a little bit of training. Now go do it. Go, do it for yourself, and then they're going to go to breakout rooms and work together through the things with kind of coaching components. But those are the only pieces that are meant to be a training component.
Okay. Got it. So cool. Love this so much. So the second part of that, what was supposed to be two part
Right.
question was, this is kind of bringing it all back to the beginning too, because, you mentioned you got a 7-figure business. We're talking about money. And yet we're also kind of trying to find this balance. And I say we, as in all of us, of just, if we don't want to go the quote unquote bro marketing way and just talk about how much money we're constantly making, and taking pictures in front of selfies in front of mansions and private jets and with like half naked girls on our arms, whatever, then there's this balance. And I'm thinking about this for myself because I publish income reports, and I do it especially because women talking about money is rare, and it's this portal of possibility for people. It shows them what is possible, especially, blogging has been a big focus of mine. And traditionally, people, you tell people you're a blogger and they're like, okay, so you're a stay-at-home mom, or you're unemployed, or whatever. They don't think you can actually make money from this. Now, in the online marketing world, we now know, of course you can, but the rest of the world doesn't. So it's kind of showing people, hey, this is possible. But I can see there's been this trend of people bragging about 6-figure launches or 10K months or whatever it is. And it makes people feel like if they're not doing that, if they're not having a 10K month or a 6-figure launch, that like they're not doing it right or they're not good enough. So how do you kind of walk that line of, we're doing this for money because it's a business. It's helpful to talk about it, but it can also be harmful.
So one of the things that happened early on, and again, um, I consider myself crazy lucky in a lot of ways, right? Because um, I stumbled into things. And what I mean by that is, because when I was getting into the online space, I don't want to say I never, but yeah, I didn't have a thought that I was going to be teaching people marketing. I was
Mhm.
doing legal stuff. And so I would do these things where I would I would just talk about my launches, but like these were not 6-figure launches. Like I talked about my $30,000 launch, and I talked about all the stuff I screwed up, and I talked about all these, things that I was doing wrong. And what I found is people told me that was their favorite
Mhm.
because they heard all about these 6-figure and 7-figure launches, and it just didn't even seem, I mean, it was so foreign. And
Right.
so they appreciated me not doing it. And again, okay, you and I both know, like some people talk about these 6-figure launch. I mean, they're like, well, I mean, you talked about it. What did you say? You made $50,000 in revenue, but you lost
Yeah.
$12,000,
At the end
right?
of the day, it was
Right.
12,000 in the red. It was a
Right.
total flop.
But I mean, I know plenty of people who like talk about, oh, I had $125,000 launch, and I don't know what their total numbers were, but I know they spent $75,000 on Facebook ads.
Right.
And I'm like, and that's some of the stuff that's not people aren't being honest about. And I'll
Right.
see these people. There are people I know, and I don't know exactly what their revenue, but like I'm in groups with them where from hearing them talk, they're like right at that $100,000 mark for the year.
Mhm.
And then I will see them like having ads saying, "I'll show you how to have $50,000 months." I'm like,
You're not.
"You're not." Why? And again, it's this thing that so many people are doing. Um, and what I tell people is like a lot of what I have a problem with is the model that most people are operating under. And again, this gets back to the bro marketing thing, because we talked about that. I don't like the term bro marketers because they're not marketers.
Mhm.
They're sellers
Mhm.
and they're infomercials. And what I tell people is going that route, going the heavy sales route of it's all about selling and it's not about connection, it's all about conversion. Going that route, what I say is it's the equivalent of people saying go to Hollywood and become a movie star.
Mhm.
People are going to it's going to happen for them, but most people are going to fail.
Mhm.
The true reality is that most successful businesses aren't about, that. And maybe they're making 6 figures in revenue, but that doesn't mean you're taking 6 figures home. And when I've like interviewed my audience, what most of them have said is they just want a business that will let them replace their 9 to 5
Right.
salary. That's what they want. And so part of me is like, that's my messaging. I never, ever I'll tell you how to have a six-figure business or anything like that. Now I talk about my launches. I talk about things like that so people can hear it. It's a launch. I don't really do launch anymore, but I talked about like the results of my event
Mm-hmm.
on a podcast. But what I tell people and my message to people is I'm going to help you build a business that you love that will support your family.
Right.
And I think we need to change that messaging so that that's what people are hearing. Because again, it's really hard to build a business up to seven figures. It just is. And anyone who's telling you anything different is lying to you so that you'll buy something from them.
Totally. I
And
think that's so important too. And I know it's something that we both take very seriously is neither of us are one of those coaches who's going to teach you how to do something that we haven't done ourselves.
Mhm.
And I think that's exactly what you're saying. You see these people that you're like, I know you're barely making six figures in gross revenue. And here you are with an ad about how to have 50K months. You're not doing it. And, I think that's in my income reports. That's part of why I wanted to do them rather than just like having a sentence in an email or something that's like, hey, I had a six-figure launch. It's like, let me break it down for you though. That I did have a six-figure launch in revenue. Then here are my expenses. Here's what I took home. Here's the full picture. Here's the context. So people really see like this is possible, but also here's everything it took to get
yeah,
here.
yeah, and I think that's important. Um, but when you were talking about that and the people and the ads we see, I had to think and come back to something we talked about before we started recording. Clubhouse.
Oh yeah.
I saw this on someone had screenshotted, I think it was a tweet or I don't know, someone from a person in Silicon Valley who had stumbled into like a room on Clubhouse with people like our like,
Okay.
coaches and all that. And it was like the person said was something like, so there are these people like talking, like coaching you about how to be a coach, and they'll help you with the coaching if you'll pay them $5,000 a month. And he said, it all seems like an MLM to me. And like, I was laughing about that. And again, it was hilarious. This person was posting it. All these people were trying to defend Clubhouse. Again, I'm not going to get into Clubhouse thoughts on that, but there's so much of that smoke. It's like people promising things they haven't done, um, people saying stuff. And again, like I will give people like thoughts on doing a launch because I'm only done a certain kind of launch, and I tell people that, but
Mhm.
but I'm also not saying I'm going to get you a six-figure, launch. I'm saying, well, why don't we talk about principles and what you need to accomplish and figure out the best way to do it and thinking it through.
Mhm.
But there just needs to be more of that and less of this false bravado. And like you joked about the pictures with mansions and private jets, I've thought about trying to like go get like I said, what was the one that there was like an old car that like a Samurai, I think it was a Kia Samurai, or it was like this one like that would roll over all the time. It's like, hadn't been made since the 90s. I want to go find one that's like 8 colors of rust and like take a serious picture like those guys like on their Lamborghinis, like with me leaning against it with a serious face to make fun of it because it is so ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous.
They're
Even
renting that car
right.
to
They're
take the
always
picture.
renting these things. It's like you don't own this stuff. And even if
Right.
you did, I mean, when I rewrote the sales page for the Six Figure Blog Academy last year, and as I was writing it, I was like, I could tell you work from anywhere on a beach in Tahiti, this and that. And like the truth is, like, I just do this so that I can pick my kids up from school and give them dinner at night. Like that's the kind of freedom and flexibility I'm talking about. Most people don't want these like crazy lavish lifestyles. That's like it's not in the cards for them. Most, my audience is primarily moms. It's like,
Mhm.
all right, let's just figure out a way that you can actually still enjoy your actual life and what you're doing to make money.
Right. And that's what again, and that's what when I did this survey of my audience and got that response about that, it hit me that so much of the marketing, and again, it's probably because of the people I've attracted, it's just dead wrong because you're
Mhm.
all talking about that, and you're right. I mean, most of my audience is family people,
Mhm.
mainly moms, because my audience happens to be 90% women. And you're right. I mean, they want they want a job they actually enjoy that gives them some flexibility in their regular life. But I
Right.
mean, it's like me. It's like, yeah, I've got a daughter who is in school. We can't, it's not like we're going to go, jetting off to all these weird places. We're
Right.
not. I mean, it's not the way life works.
Uh-uh.
And like I said, I'm not looking to retire anytime soon. So I'm not promising that. But some of that is just so over the top
Yeah.
that it's ridiculous. But again, it's, and I don't even know why. I mean, I think people are doing it because they have this sense that promising people stuff will do good. And I mean, I feel like a lot of what's happening, like a lot of the offers being made to people in the online space on both sides, the pure money driven, but also the more nurturing side, a lot of the offers being made to them remind me of when I was in college and there was like, I'd see those flyers for envelope stuffing, which, it promises you all this money, but you're not going to make money at it. Let me just go ahead and tell you, you're not.
Right.
Um, but that's why I'm on a quest to try to bring some human back to this space
Right.
and try to
It's
be honest.
interesting, like, what would happen if we instead of trying to have all of this over the top marketing with these huge promises, what if we just really did just keep it really real and we're just like, "Hey, if you just want to replace your 9 to 5 income and have a little bit more time with your family, there's
Mhm.
some really cool things you can do in the online space to create a business. You don't have to have an 8-figure business in order to do it."
Right. Well, and again, I mean, it's like some people affirmatively don't want that, but they
Right.
feel like they have to.
Mhm.
And again, it's another thing that I push people on is do you want income or do you want impact? And I'm
Right.
not saying they're mutually exclusive, but that's always one of the first questions I ask people because I will always choose impact, which means I keep my stuff more affordable. My
Mhm.
my stuff is always cheaper than my competitors because I would rather serve more people than serve fewer people and make the same amount of money. And
Mhm.
again, we could get into geeky things about supply and demand, but you can price things different way and make about the same amount of money depending on how many people you want to serve. And again, I guess it's a common theme with me because I'm not trying to put distance between me and my people.
Right.
And what
Right.
I'll tell people is using this approach that I use is the better long-term solution because guess what? Those people will be here this year, next year, the year after, and the lifetime value of a customer goes up when you do that.
Right.
And so that's the other thing I like to suggest to people is why aren't you like let's think about building a business that we think decades, not
Mhm.
years. And
Right.
again, I have no idea what's going to happen in 2031. Let me be clear, but I'm trying to think through how would I build a business
Right.
to be here in 2031.
Totally. I love it. So this was gone longer than we expected, of course, which is ironic because I think the last man that came on was Jacques Hopkins, and he was at one, I think, our very longest interview ever. And now you're getting to be a close second. So there's something to having men on the show.
Well, your problem is you have a former trial lawyer who
Yeah.
is very loquacious. So if you let me talk, I'll keep talking about
Keep
this stuff.
talking.
You're the third podcast I've been on this week, and this is the shortest interview yet at, just under what, an hour, I don't know, an hour and 20 minutes or something. So yeah.
It's so funny. I love it. Okay, so we'll wrap up here. I got one last question for you, and this is normally I ask a lot of the women that come on, like, what do they do for self care? And not that that doesn't apply to men, but I'm going to twist the question a little bit because I think you are somebody who gives a lot of yourself away. How do you make sure that there's something left for you?
And this is the weird thing. I don't have to think about it
Mm,
because the giving lights me up. And again, that's like I mean, I don't know what it is about me as a person that leads to that, but I know it's true.
mhm.
What I'll tell you is that, and I sent it, I think I sent an email about this recently. Like I used to brew beer, and I mean, was this close to starting a brewery about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. And I haven't really brewed beer in 2 years. And it's not because I don't have time. It's not because my beer isn't good. It's not for anything like that. It's because my job fills me up. Like literally, if I have an empty cup, the easiest way for me to get filled up is to come and do my job,
Mm,
to be with my people, to serve my people. And again, I don't know if that's a personality thing. it definitely has something to do with the fact that I love the people I serve and I love how I'm serving them. And I've built a business where the way I'm serving them fits me. Like I am a relationship. I want to be engaged with people. So I have created a business that allows me to do that. And so that's the honest truth. I don't have to think about it. The more I give, the more I serve my people, the more lit up I get, the greater I feel. And so that's how I do it. I know it's not a great answer because I think you were probably hoping for like, a piece of advice other
Bubble
people can
baths or
replicate. Yeah, but it's the truth.
yeah.
I've just realized I don't have a lot of hobbies. I mean, I spend time with my family, and obviously, we're kind of in the middle of quarantine, so it's
A lot of
continued.
time with our families.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, I just I don't need it, and I don't have a lot of hobbies because I don't need them.
Mhm.
Because I'm so filled up with what I do all day, every day.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Bobby. This was so fun.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.